You are now watching the Amazing Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on both of our channels. So make sure you hit on that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not as of yet. What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. We are getting ready for Sunday Night Baseball, Mets-Cubs rubber game of the three-game set with Luis Severino on the mound and Javier Assad for the Cubs. And we are having a series that has been lopsided one way or the other for the first two games. And now it comes to today, which, if everybody's not paying attention, is the most important game of the season, right? This is a extremely important series, not only because of the wild card standings, but because of a possible tiebreaker down the road in the future if it gets to that point. And we're going to say what up to Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Oof. Apologies, first of all, for not making that treacherous post game yesterday. I know that it was a struggle to sort of talk Mets after that abysmal loss. Tyler McGill didn't have it. I'm sure we'll talk about it here. Checked out the stream, Rob. I always love listening to you, but just the result of it was what made it so treacherous. So listen, that is erased from my memory bank. And if you're a player for this New York Mets team, you have to erase it from your memory bank as well, because guess what? Like you just said, there's a potential tiebreaker on the line. The Mets went 2-2 with the Cubs back in Citi Field or at Citi Field in early May. And now it's a 3-game set. 7 games, odd number. Only one team can come away with that tiebreaker. And you know what? You bumped up your starting pitcher, your best starting pitcher you got in Luis Severino. You bumped him up to start today because you really want this series. And my thing is go out there and win. Just go out there and win. I love it. I love Mets baseball. Do I like Sunday Night Baseball because of the ESPN broadcast? No. I believe we have Hector going to be live commentating the game as well, so make sure you go check him out if he's still doing it. Appreciate you being in here, Hector. And let's have ourselves a night. You catch us in the post game today as well. We're doing that right after the.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, you forget about yesterday. I talked about it a lot on the post game, and I appreciate you listening to me because I didn't know what to say after that game. It was kind of like, it's a brush. It's a brush the game off the shoulder. Forget about it. And if you looked at the top of the ninth when the Mets were up at the plate, they clearly wanted to forget yesterday and just start a new day, because that ninth inning at bats were just like, all right, let's get back to the hotel, have some dinner, and worry about tomorrow. It seemed like that, and I have no problem with that because it never felt like that game was in hand, was going to be a comeback type of victory. I didn't feel like that at all. Maybe that's bad on me as a Mets fan, but I just didn't feel like. I think Tyler McGill 5 runs in the first. Look, I don't care who you are. It's hard to come back from a game like that. So it sucks, but you take it with a grain of salt. Tyler McGill sucks, and we go about our business with Luis Severino on the mound. And I'm hoping that this team, because this is another bounce back spot, right? This is a situation here where you don't want to end up having a road trip of 3-3 when you started off so well in Texas, because 4-2 sounds a hell of a lot sexier than 3-3, right? You want to go 500 on the road, right? That's like a common goal most of the time, because that doesn't put you, in a bad, you don't have a bad taste in your mouth after the road trip. Problem is the Mets put themselves so far behind the 8-ball, and with being 11 games on the 500 and have to catch up, they can't afford to go 500 on the road. They have to be better, and they also have to be better at home. But it would be really nice coming on the off day tomorrow to come off a victory, another series win, still maintaining a hot streak, because we forget that it's still a hot streak, guys. We are still on this hot streak right now with the New York Mets in this month of June, or late April into June. So you win today or tonight, you go on the off day tomorrow, and you prepare for the Subway Series against a Yankee team that has been struggling. Again, we've said that many times against teams that the Mets are facing, right? The Rangers were struggling coming in facing us. Today, with the Cubs, this series, they were struggling, even though they won 2 in a row, but they've been struggling for the most part. And you come back home and you got a Subway Series. Now we got an event. So obviously today's the most important game. I don't care about the Yankees. It doesn't matter. I don't care until Tuesday or probably Monday night when we talk on the roundtable. But I truly believe that this team's going to bounce back, right? It was a terrible performance yesterday, right? The offense, besides Martinez and Alvarez, nobody did any good. And we got our favorite players and DJ Stewart and Jeff McNeil in this lineup again. And I have something to say about that after Chris talks again, because people don't want to hear me speak for 20 minutes straight when he's on the stream as well. So let me shut up. But I feel confident about today's game, Chris. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I feel confident as well, just because this Mets team has been playing really good baseball. I agree with you. 4-2 looks a hell of a lot better than 3-3, and the Mets absolutely just kind of folding over for a better part of May puts themselves, like you said, in this position where us as fans in the organization, these players need to treat this as a must-win game, right? You just need to continue stacking series wins. We're not even asking for sweeps. The Padres series was great. It was a sweep. It was unfortunate that we didn't get the Rangers sweep, but we don't ask for sweeps. That's really unachievable. They're going to come here and there, but series wins is what you want to stack. And that's what gets you back into the thick of things in terms of the race. And that's what's got the Mets back into the thick of things here in this NL wildcard race. So I agree with you 100%. And it's actually funny you mentioned that about DJ Stewart, because I was going to ask you right before we move on to today to talk a little bit about the Starling Marte injury. I didn't see it. I didn't see when he got pulled from the game. I was kind of here and there in terms of watching the game yesterday. I understand that it happened pretty early on, right, as well. So I wasn't really back home yet to watch that. But I'm not sure if Marte is going to land on an IL. Probably not, if it's just soreness, if I had to guess. But what I will say is I'm very curious how the Mets are going to sort of, I guess, mitigate that, especially for tonight. You see DJ Stewart is in right field. Jeff McNeil's another option. I know a lot of people love Jeff McNeil on the stream, right? You and me both love Jeff McNeil. It's sarcasm, obviously, but he's another option to play in the outfield. You got Tyrone Taylor as well, who replaced Marte yesterday. Like, there's a lot of ways the Mets can go about this. And the thing is that you don't have a true backup right fielder to replace him every day. If I had to choose one of those guys to be that sort of replacement every day, it would be Tyrone Taylor over a Jeff McNeil and a DJ Stewart. Obviously, not only defensively, but also with just the bat as well. I think I'm more confident in Tyrone Taylor's bat than I am DJ Stewart's. But you know what? Last time, I guess not yesterday, but the day before that, or the game before that DJ Stewart started and we were all pissed off, he went and hit a 3-run bomb in Texas. So you never know. I see a prediction here, 2-run home run from DJ Stewart tonight. It's a bold prediction, and I guess that leads me right into what you're going to say about DJ Stewart. But I agree. A lot of Mets fans are not thrilled with this lineup. But at this point, right, when you have Starling Marte out, obviously the only other substitution that we would make here collectively as a collective thought would be Jose Iglesias. And what happens, and this is what we have to talk about as well, is after a 4-hit game for Jose Iglesias in game 1 in the Chicago series, you follow up by starting Jeff McNeil back-to-back games? Like, what is the thought process there? And a lot of people are going to say, well, Jeff McNeil has played against lefties, right? Since he's coming back, he's done it maybe like on 1 or 2 offhanded situations, right? But listen, this is the deal. This is what the Mets are doing. And until they prove us wrong or prove me wrong in this, Jeff McNeil starts against right-handed pitchers and Jose Iglesias starts against the lefties. That's what it is. And that is a quote-unquote matchup, and I hate it. I despise it. I've literally talked about this to the end of time, going back for years, how I hate that the Mets do this, that they value lefty-righty so much. Play the hot hand. And I understand that there's so many things involved with this. I understand that. But it's just kind of infuriating to me to see a guy have 4 hits, to know that a guy in Jose Iglesias is playing like night and day different, better baseball than Jeff McNeil, and then you reward Jeff McNeil with 2 back-to-back starts. Now, like I said, a lot of people could say this is nitpicking. I understand that, but when the Mets are in this type of situation, when we keep on saying on these streams that these are must-win games for the Mets, especially against teams like the Cubs that are right there with them in this NL wildcard race, wouldn't you want to trot your best personnel out there?
Yeah.
And I always say this, right? Because I will just say, I don't expect any run production in general to fall off between Jose Iglesias and Jeff McNeil because the rest of the guys surrounding them should do a good enough job. Let's say if Jeff McNeil doesn't, and they have been because they've still been scoring runs, maybe outside of yesterday with Jeff McNeil in the lineup. I'm talking in terms of like generalities. But when you see a guy have 3 RBIs and 4 hits, it's just like, what is going on here, man? What is going on? And we could talk about this all day long, but the bottom line is, for me, in my perspective, I look at the lineup, I shake my head, I go on about my day, and I'm getting ready to watch an important game. Because guess what? At the end of the day, do I like the lineup? It's meh. Maybe Mendoza has his hands tied in terms of what he can actually do with the current personnel, with injuries, etc., whatever. Doesn't matter. Win the ball game, and guess who's going to shut up? It's going to be me. I will shut up on the post game, and that's just what I got.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I didn't when I saw the lineup and I saw Stewart and McNeil in there. I thought, okay, Marte just went down with the injury. I get it. Stewart puts in for that day. You could have put Tyrone Taylor, but they probably went with the righty lefty matchup. And it's not like Tyrone Taylor has been hitting the cover off the ball, as similar to DJ Stewart. But I understand it, right? You put the righty in there, the lefty bat for a right-handed pitcher with the injury right away. You got a day off tomorrow. Roster moves are probably going to happen tomorrow, in my opinion, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit if you don't mind. The fact is, the Jeff McNeil situation. Look, it doesn't make no sense to me. I don't believe it's the righty lefty matchup. I said this in a group chat with you guys. I truly believe this is a last test for a guy like DJ Stewart. Right? You could say that DJ Stewart was in there. Right? You could easily put Tyrone Taylor, who's probably has a better chance with the bat. Not just either looking for a walk or hitting a home run. That's basically what DJ Stewart is. Tyrone Taylor actually is more of a gap-to-gap guy. He has power, but he puts the bat on the ball a little bit more. And I know his on base is not great, but I see it like this. They put DJ Stewart and Jeff McNeil in here and back-to-back days for one reason. This is their final test, in my opinion. You got an off day tomorrow before you come back home for a homestand. Usually on off days, especially after road trips, and there's a couple of injuries, there's guys not playing well, this is when roster moves are going to happen. And I'm bringing that up because I'm not saying Jeff McNeil is going to get thrown off this roster, right? I don't believe the Mets are going to DFA him. It's probably stupid to DFA him because you probably can get something back at some point when you do trade him because he's not going to be here after the deadline. Regardless if the Mets are buyers or sellers, he's gone. But when people say, oh, you're not going to get a bag of balls for Jeff McNeil, I've seen play. Look, did we not forget the Mets gave up Holderman for Vogelback? Right? It's not like Vogelback was one of the better players in baseball, and he gave a controllable arm for Vogelback. So I'm not saying you're going to get a top-of-the-line prospect or anything like that for Jeff McNeil. But what do the Mets need? The Mets need arms in the bullpen, right? With David Stearns, who seems like he has an eye for certain bullpen arms that might not be good on a team, but you might get a guy that has a 4.5 ERA in the bullpen for whatever team you trade Jeff McNeil to. And he comes to the Mets, and it just fits right. And he pitches better. He's in a different role with the Mets than what he was with with his former team. That's what I'm thinking. So the Jeff McNeil experiment, he might be the last man on the roster, and he'll get spot starts here and there, and maybe a pinch hit here and there during the week. But he's not going to play a lot anymore. I think this is the last chance for Jeff McNeil and DJ Stewart. And I would not be shocked if DJ Stewart gets sent back down to the minors and you see Ben Gamel or Chase Thompson replacing him. And I know somebody brought that up in the chat and somebody stole my thunder there. And I appreciate that because you guys know what you're talking about as well. So, I was looking at it. Ben Gamel has been ripping the cover off the ball. Chase Thompson, I think, has 15 home runs now, if I'm not mistaken. They've been tearing the cover off of minor league pitching. I know it's minor league pitching, but in AAA. But still, right? Why not change it? Why not flip-flop these guys, right? They can't be worse than DJ Stewart. And if they are, you change it to the next guy. right? It's not like DJ Stewart is your starter and you're replacing your starter with a guy that you're not really sure can be a major leaguer. So, and can be on this team full time. But you might as well try it out. And this is why tomorrow's the perfect moment, because they fly back home. They got the off day, and Stearns is always cooking something up and working. So I would not be shocked if there's a couple of roster moves tomorrow, because obviously there will be with Marte. I believe he's going on the IL. If I saw that report, I believe he's going on the IL. So there's already going to be
He
a
is.
roster.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. Okay, got it. I
So
wasn't sure.
so that's a roster move in itself, but I'm talking about a little bit more. Like, you're gonna need, if Marte's not there, who's starting in right field? Are you gonna put somebody in right field? Who is it gonna be? Is it gonna be Tyrone Taylor? I don't think they're gonna do that. I think they're gonna bring somebody up, and I don't think they trust DJ Stewart enough. He's not very good defensively, and he's not really doing anything with the bat. So what is he there for? Right? I don't want a guy who is bad on both sides of the ball as a pinch hit option or a defensive replacement. That does not make any sense, because he's not better than probably even Marte with a bum knee. So I just don't understand that. So I think you're going to see roster moves tomorrow. Other than the Marte IL, that's going to be a roster spot opening. Maybe they keep DJ Stewart on there and they bring up Gamble or Chase Thompson as well. Maybe they do that to fill up the spot, and maybe they'll do a platoon in right field with Stewart and either one of those two guys I just mentioned. That's just me. I don't know your thoughts, Chris, but I brought it up in the group chat, so I might as well bring it up on the live stream.
If you know me, I love me some Trace Thompson, man. That guy killed the ball in spring training. I've been talking about him for a while now. And I mean, there's really no reason not to, right? Especially with the current situation. Why not take a stab at a guy like Trace Thompson, where you can provide immediate pop? Now, also, depending on what they do with DJ Stewart, right? Because that's your lefty bat. I mean, Ben Gamel's also, I believe, a lefty, a solid 8-year vet in the MLB. I don't think he's going to provide you as much pop as Trace Thompson, but he's a career 332 on base percentage guy. He knows how to get on base. So I think both of those options would be absolutely awesome to have. And it's a luxury for the Mets to have some guys like that at the minor league level, right? Veterans that can just come up here in a situation where Marte goes on the IL. So listen, if I prioritize anybody, it's going to be Trace Thompson because I want that power. But if you give me Ben Gamel, am I complaining? No. And honestly, thank you for I guess telling me that, because I honestly did not know what the plan with Marte, like what it was. We know that he had some soreness going into that London series, and he's been kind of like taking plays off right here and there. He's been stealing some bases, which has been a good sign, but he's been taking plays off in right field, especially when those cuts are made. And it's just like, what's going on? So I guess the writing was on the wall with something like this happening. And it's unfortunate because he's been one of the Mets' like most consistent bats since the season has started. But you know what? It is what it is. Next man up. And this team can't afford to sort of drop off offensively just because Marte's out. So listen, bring me Trace Thompson. If it's Ben Gamel, not complaining either. But we'll see what happens there. I think that they shift there in the outfield more so than like a Brett Beatty, because obviously Brett Beatty's just not ready to play outfield yet. Although, if the Mets decide to keep Brett Beatty around for the future, would much rather see it in the outfield than second base. But that's just my 2 cents, and we could talk about that when the time comes, right, with Brett Beatty. But yeah, I see Ethan in the chat here saying Dacomo tweeted something out about Christian Scott. Been wondering where Christian Scott's been. A lot of people talking about Christian Scott before he went or while he was going on and being sent back down. We're talking about after the London series, after the London series, after the London series. If you know me, I didn't like the move. I don't know why they sent him down. But finally, we have some murmurs about who might be coming up during the Mets 17-game stretch without an off day starting this Friday, according to Anthony DeComo, who is now back from vacation, right? It was funny, the exchange between Tim Healy and Anthony DeComo after DeComo came back from vacation. Healy said some people were talking about it's not a shock that the Mets go on a winning streak in a hot stretch while Anthony DeComo is on vacation. But listen, that's neither here nor there, man. Listen, I don't really know. I don't know if Trace Thompson or Ben Gamble are going to be the difference makers, but at this point, you really have nothing else to do, right? You're not going to call up like Drew Gilbert, who's on the IL. That's not an option. Ryan Clifford's still a little bit ways away. They're not going to sort of jumpstart him and make him take that leap in the minor league. So I think that a young minor league talent is off the table, and I feel like a lot of people, that's probably their first question is one of the young minor leaguers in play right now. But I think right now the Mets and all the sort of organizational clues, if you will, that they've been giving us is it's going to be a veteran coming up. And who are those veterans? We just talked about them, Trace Thompson and Ben Gamble. And so I'm fine with either one of those, honestly. Defensively, obviously, you'd probably still rather have Tyrone Taylor out there, but Trace Thompson has played also probably all three outfield positions. He's got some speed to him, and he'd definitely be in play for right field, especially as maybe more so your everyday right fielder while Marte's on the IL. So, like I said, all those things taken into consideration, give me Thompson, but Gamble's not a bad bet either. But the thing is that you're right. It matters. Like that one roster move is going to have to happen in replacement of Marte, but are they going to also just do a clean sweep by sending DJ Stewart down after like a game like tonight, right? Heading into the off day. They can put Marte on the IL and then put Stewart down in AAA and bring up both those guys because you have your lefty and your righty that you'd be missing with DJ Stewart and Starling Marte. So that's also not out of the question either. I would watch out for that too.
Well, yeah, and you know that does make sense, right? Because usually, you know, a couple of times now when you've seen moves, mostly bullpen moves, it's not one guy, right? You know, Shohei Foley went down, you have to add a guy, right? That's Danny Young, right? But when he makes a flurry of moves when he makes roster moves. It's usually not one move unless it's an injury. So I'm trying to think. Like I believe he made a couple of moves. Like it was like 3 pitchers for 3 pitchers or something like that. It was something crazy earlier in the year. And, you know, that's when we were like, hey, Stearns is always cooking. He's always working. And I would not be shocked if you see a swap like that, obviously to fill Marte's spot and DJ Stewart, right? You still get that righty-lefty, and you can still play with the righty-lefty matchups that I don't necessarily agree with. But if they want to still do that, they still can with different faces. Somebody who's actually hitting in AAA, why not bring them up? It can't be worse, right? You know, you do lose Marte's bat. Even with his bum knee, he was still hitting. And, you know, he was a problem in right field. But, you know, like you said, Chris, and you're spot on. We hope the Mets don't fall into this, you know, 2022 category again, where when Marte went down, the team couldn't hit anymore. It's like Marte was the spark and they couldn't do nothing without him. Let's hope that's not the case. Now, I don't believe that's the case this year. It seems like a whole new dynamic because he's not at the top of the lineup anymore in the top 4. So I don't know how much that's going to hurt the back end of the lineup. But yeah, you're right. So I'm trying to figure out because I brought up the tweet. I just pulled up the tweet about with DeComo just for everybody who might not be able to look at their phones right now, working or doing something and not just listening to the stream right now. DeComo talked about Senga. We'll get that in a second. But what we were talking about is although the Mets are not committing to anything just yet, there's a good chance, in quotations, Christian Scott returns to the rotation during their 17-game stretch without an off day that begins Friday and runs through the All-Star break. He's in play, manager Mendoza said. So obviously you got a 17-day stretch, no off days. They're probably going to go to a 6-man. So everybody who thinks that McGill's going to get sent down for Christian Scott or whoever else you might want to send down besides McGill, it's probably going to be a 6-man because you're going to probably, you know, one of these starters are probably not going to go. You know, they might have a bad outing and you only get 3 innings from them, like a McGill start yesterday. And you got to use a lot of your bullpen. So I wouldn't be shocked if Christian Scott comes up and you're going to see a 6-man rotation for the 17-game stretch, which is extremely important to end the month of June. So, yeah. So you're going to get your wish. Christian Scott's going to be here probably about a week and a half late, but he'll be up here and we'll see how they play that out. If it is a roster move to replace somebody, or it's just going to be that 6-man rotation that I think that can happen as well. Also, the Kodai Senga situation, we know he's not going to be here until after the All-Star break. That's a guarantee. But he said Kodai Senga threw a 22-pitch live bullpen session today in Port St. Lucie, making his first time facing hitters since May. Sanger will now fly back to New York with an eye to potentially throw him live batting practice by the end of the week. So that's a good sign. Again, not going to be back until after the All-Star break, most likely if everything goes good. So that's a good sign for the Mets. Again, we going to have to wait and see what happens with him. But, and sorry, because I just saw Easy bring up Alex Ramirez. That's our guy, right? We talked about that early in the season. We thought he would be one of the players the prospects that would be up here because he's shown good signs. Easy, that's a great point. I haven't looked at Alex Ramirez's stat line in the minors. I don't know if you have, Chris, so I haven't really checked, so that's on me. I'll check really quickly, but that is another interesting option. I don't think they'll go that route. I think they'd rather go the veteran route and the Gamble and Thompson route. But Alex Ramirez, he was one of the Mets' top prospects not too long ago in the top 5. And, he fell off a little bit. But what are your thoughts on that? About what I just said, and then Alex Ramirez as well.
I still don't think it happens. I mean, I don't think like I said, my statement still stands. They are not going to prioritize a youthful talent in the minor leagues over a veteran. And I think Yeet over here in the comment section is saying why I would prefer Thompson over Ben Gamble. Listen, I would probably prefer just because of the home runs and the power that you get, but I'm indifferent. But the reason why I think it's more logical to bring up Thompson is because for one reason or another, the Mets love lefty righties. And if you're sending in a righty to the IL, you're going to bring up the righty bat. And that's just Trace Thompson and not Ben Gamble. So I'm speaking more so like logically in terms of what the Mets would do. If I had to get my true wish, I would just bring both of them up and just send DJ Stewart down like I proposed toward the end of my last rant. So that's really all, just to answer your question. Yeah, I don't know. Hector, I can't get behind that. I'm sorry. I know we're never gonna agree on the distribution, and I just realized that I don't have my mic plugged in. I've been here the whole stream without my mic. I apologize. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. Whoa. All right.
There we go. We're never gonna agree on that, Hector. If you're telling me that Vientos gets an off day with an off day already coming up tomorrow, and that they're bringing up Luis Severino in what is thought to be as one of the most important series of this 2024 season so far, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. Vientos can have an off day on Monday just like everybody else. I'm not prioritizing Jeff McNeil over Mark Vientos, which is exactly what happened yesterday. So I'm sorry. It's just not. That's never going to make sense to me. So
yeah, Chris, I tend to agree with you on that. Like, you can't push back Luis Severino and make that. Obviously, they're prioritizing this series. That's why you push back Severino for this rubber game on the Sunday, knowing that you're probably going to have to. This is an important series instead of the Yankees. Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think it was an off day. Maybe it was. Maybe it was just maybe, but I find that hard to believe when you're trying to win this series and making it obviously a priority. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, they have look, clearly Mendoza is using his gut a lot of the times as well. And I do think this DJ Stewart, Jeff McNeil thing is kind of Mendoza getting a feeling like, hey, guys, you guys are going to be off this team if you don't start picking it up. And Mendoza seems like he doesn't, shut his mouth. Like, I think he speaks up and lets these players know. Like, I don't think he lies to these guys. He goes, listen, it's your time. You got to make something happen. Everybody else who didn't do their job is out of here. And you are no different. And I think Mendoza's not afraid to say that. And it's clear that when he speaks, the team listens. So, yeah, the Vientos thing, I find that hard to believe that it was an off day. This guy's not a 36-year-old, journeyman here that needs a day off, right? He's a guy that clearly would play every day. You made him your starter. To put him in for McNeil, it doesn't make me feel good about that at all. Or Iglesias even, but yeah, it's not why we lost the game yesterday, right? McGill kind of lost us the game very early. So, I don't care if he had, the Mets all-time greatest lineup in team history out there, they're probably not going to win that game. So to get on one player why he wasn't in the lineup, and it could have been the difference. If it was a 2-1 ball game, maybe we can have a conversation more about it. But it wasn't going to make a difference. So I'm leaning on Chris's side here with that. But yeah, I find that hard to believe.
I will say, just in general, this is obviously nitpicking, right? We're like, this is an age-old debate between me and Hector, so that's not really nothing new for everybody in the chat for you all to know, right? It's all love between me and Hector, but we just simply will not agree on the usage and what the writing on the wall is for Jeff McNeil, if there is any, right? So it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I agree with Rob here. Appreciate you, Rob Parker, being here. My guy, just win today, man. We got a huge opportunity in front of us. Like, we can sit here and just sort of nitpick at the lineup yesterday, the lineup the day before, 3 days ago, whatever, right? We got to see what the Mets are going to respond with after an 8-1 loss last night. We got to see how they're going to respond. Good teams respond well. Good teams will go out there with their best pitcher on the mound, provide him some runs, and just hope he does his job as well. Because let's not forget, it was a rough outing for Luis Severino last time around in Texas. Let's hope that changes. Let's get a win, man. I'm sick and tired, honestly, of talking lineup every single day. Because like I said, way in the past, they can throw out any single lineup. And they already have. They've thrown out a lot of different variations of the lineup. And it's just about consistency. So I don't really think that playing one guy over the other, like I said, is going to make or break the run production. It's just funny to me, the principle behind Jeff McNeil playing 2 games in this series and prioritizing him, because that's what it is. It's prioritization. Like at the end of the day, that's what I'm calling it. Anyways, regardless, I'm getting off that topic now. Sevy, I'm looking at you. Hopefully you're just in the clubhouse, watching this pregame stream. I don't know. Go out there, throw some strikes.
Yep.
Strike batters out if you have to. If you don't want to strike batters out, let your defense make some plays for you. That's it. Enough with the walks. I'm not saying that he has walked hitters himself and he struggles with that. He did a little bit early on in the season, but I really think I like his game, man. He's a professional. He knows how to go out there and skirt out of trouble. He didn't last go around, but you know what? It's all right. Everybody has off nights. I trust Sevy. If there is any pitcher in this staff or on this staff that I would like to have pitching this game, it's Luis Severino. And guess what? The organization must agree with me by calling him up for this game. So I think everybody should be confident about this game until we're not, and we'll talk about it in the post game. Offense needs to provide. That's plain and simple. Provide early and often. Javier Assad, I believe, also had a good outing against the Mets the last time around. Mm-hmm. So did Jameson Taillon, and he continued that trend, unlike Shota Imanaga. But nonetheless, Javier Assad, also not a guy that's going to blow fastballs right by you, works more with the sort of movement and the off-speed pitches. The Mets have to adapt to that.
Yep.
And they did very well against Shota Imanaga. He didn't have whatever his off-speed was. I told you about the Savant on the pregame that I did that day. He didn't have that working. And you know what the Mets did? And unfortunately, I can't make this trend. I didn't know what you saw last night. I'm very curious to see what you saw in terms of the at-bats last night, Rob, because like I said, I was able to tune in so late, so I can't make that generalized assumption. But the day before, when the Mets jumped over Shota Imanaga all over him, they swung at pitches early in the count. They swung at strikes early in the count. Did they let Jameson Taillon work deep in counts? What was the distinction there?
Not really, because what was interesting, especially early in the game, the first inning or two, you saw they panned to a lot of the players on the Mets, especially the hitters that faced Taillon in the first inning, that they were talking about the spin of his cutter. They were expecting his spin on his cutter to drop a little bit more in the zone. And what it was doing, it was just frisbeeing up there and just hanging. And they were getting under that ball a lot. They were striking out a lot, swinging underneath the ball. And it was weird that they were talking about it, because in the start at Citi Field, and when they were talking about it, I don't know if it was Gary Cohen. Steve Gelbs that brought it up, or Ron Darling. But in the start against Citi Field, his cutter was dropping just enough where they were thinking that was what was going to happen. Now I don't know if it's the wind at Wrigley that is causing it to spin up there and not drop, but they were talking about that a lot. But they couldn't get to it because it was in the strike zone, but it wasn't, I guess, in their comfort area to where they were trying to put barrels of ball. Maybe I don't. It was a weird experience because it was the whole time Tyone was out there, they couldn't get on top of that ball, and I wonder the game plan was because they were swinging early in the counts. They had a lot of 0-2 counts. They were trying to get to him early before we got to his off speed and breaking pitches, but that cutter was doing something that I don't think they were expecting. And when they tried to adjust, he was already in full like go mode. Like, like when a pitcher finds it and they're going good, and it's just going out there, just throwing, and everything's smooth and running and throwing good. It just felt like he was in a groove at that point, and it was kind of too late. So I think it was that their gameplay was to get to him early, get early in the count. And like they did with Shota Imanaga, right? You got to hit his fastball before he gets to that other nasty off-speed breaking stuff. They were trying to do that with Tyone, who doesn't really throw that hard, but he likes to throw his cutter a lot. And they were focusing on that cutter, which was a great game plan to go into because he shut them down with that cutter that was dropping off the table at Citi Field, and it was dipping. At Wrigley, it didn't. So I guess it had to be something with Wrigley with the wind because the wind was blowing very aggressively at Wrigley yesterday. So it could have been that, but I think they had the right game plan. But once they finally did adjust, Tyone was just in a groove, and it was just ball game, to be honest.
Yeah, I was like maybe thinking after the Francisco Alvarez home run, like if you can hold them, just chip away. But it just seemed like the offense wasn't going to really produce that sort of comeback spark like they did in Texas in game 2. But nonetheless, really good opportunity. I don't really know what else to say, but I guess I'm curious to see how the bullpen's going to shake out today, especially if it's a close game. Danny Young went yesterday. Good to see him back up. Danny Young. You got Adrian Hauser, who went 3+ innings yesterday as well, to provide the Mets some innings, and he's not going to be available today. So really don't want it to get to a late game situation where you need outs and Adam Ottavino is walking up onto that mound, or like a Drew Smith in a 1-run ball game. That's going to be a bad feeling in my stomach. But guess what? If the Mets really want to get to where they want to be at, they need those two guys to produce because there's only so many innings that a guy like Daniel Nunez is able to provide to sort of pick those guys up. Edwin Diaz, same thing. Now that Sean Reed Foley is on the IL, he's not in that equation. So the bullpen is going to have to, if the Mets want to be where they want to be, right? Continue to be in the wild card race, maybe even grab one of those wild card spots here soon. Adam Ottavino and Drew Smith are going to have to pitch well. And you can't just mask them in that bullpen. You can't.
No, you can't.
This bullpen's not good enough to just mask them and just throw somebody else out there. Those guys are still going to have important roles in this bullpen. They just need to turn it around. Now, is anyone confident in that right now? Me, not so much, but it's going to have to happen. So maybe we'll even see another 2.0 situation with one of those guys coming up in a key situation and trying to get some outs.
Yeah, and McGill's start yesterday just killed this bullpen, right? Ron Darling brought it up on the broadcast. He said, right, they need McGill to go, at least 5 innings, hopefully 6, because the rest up the bullpen a little bit, and that obviously didn't happen, and you had to use a ton of bullpen, and now you're kind of limited in this last game here. But look, this is a situation where the Mets are trusting Severino. Why they did put him back to this game. He needs to go 6 innings. Like, let's not make no mistake back. 5 innings is okay, but you need him to go 6 here. If everything runs perfectly, 7, right, to save this bullpen a little bit. So you only might have to use the Nunez Diaz combination 8th and the 9th, right? So we need Severino to at least go 6, hopefully 7. Like that would be great if he goes 7, right? I would sign on that dotted line right away if he goes 7. Because it's going to help this bullpen. But again, it's baseball. crazy things happen. We'll see. And what is interesting, before we head out, um, I do wonder, like it kind of annoyed me yesterday because the with the at bats, it seemed like I don't know. Let me besides the at bats, right? More about the pitching, right? Everybody has been like making up their, or not making up, but like saying their own why they lost today, or why they haven't been winning, or whatever, right? Saying that, oh, the pitching's not good enough, the hitting's not good enough, the bullpen sucks, the starters suck, whatever. I don't feel like any of them have been dreadful. Like the lineup, yes, but it was mostly the big guys, right, with the bottom of the order doing their job for the majority of the year. I still feel like they have another level to them. Maybe that's just me being insane and just want hope, and I'm just trying to bring up positive vibes. I know, Rob, positive. You never know, right? But I didn't even bring up Alonso, so it's a positive day, and I should, but I won't, right? But I just feel like there's another level to this team, right? I think the lineup, when they're all going like they are right now, I think they're on that level that they need to be. I still think there's a next step for the starters and the bullpen. I don't know why that is. Because I know some of these guys can pitch better than what they are, like the Manayas, the Quintanas, guys like that. And so maybe I'm just crazy, but what are your thoughts, your last thoughts on that before we head out, an hour before the game? If that makes sense to you, Chris.
No, that makes sense to me 100% because I think what you're trying to say here, right, if I'm catching the drift, is that not one position group of this team has been consistently horrible, right? It's more so that they haven't just gelled as a team collectively. And during the hot streak, right, they did. They got good pitching and good offense at the same time. And then the bullpen's job there, that was very easy. So I agree with what you're saying 100%, but I'm also very curious in terms of like what the sort of philosophy or ideology, right? And I don't want to do this, but like there's been multiple reports about the deadline and like what the Mets are willing to do versus not willing to do, being buyers and sellers at the same time, being willing to open, up some of the negotiations to some of the 1-year deals, especially in that rotation. 100% agree with you. And this team that we have right now could look a little different than the team that we're talking about post deadline, while still maintaining that expectation of being one of those wild card teams. So I agree with you. I'm just like very hesitant to speak about this current roster right now because I know there might be some shakeups during the deadline that will like just change it up, especially on the pitching side of things. And I do agree with you though. Every single time that the Mets have gone out there, lost close ball games, whatever, I've always been like, it's infuriating to me because this team has more in them than what they're showing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to say that right now, even though we're talking about an 8-1 loss and we're coming off of 3 straight series wins. It's kind of hard to say that with what they've proved here over the last like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But like, I get that sort of like feeling as well. And it's not one where you can just sit there and blatantly say, okay, it's because of this. Well, someone's just going to come back at you and say, listen, they've won what? 11 of their last 14 games, something like that. So what are you talking about? How can they be playing? How could they play any better? But I agree with you. There's been still some things that I'd like to see with this team sort of get cleaned up. And I think that the peak has not been reached yet from this team. And that's us fans should want that. There should be still room for improvement with
Yeah.
this team because it's not like they're this perfect ball club. And like not many ball clubs around this league are, right? So this is a game of baseball. It's a game of imperfection, which is the beautiful thing about it. But like I agree with you. I don't want to say like what it is because I can't put my finger on it, right? I mean, it could be the bullpen. Obviously, probably the bullpen is where you start, right? Especially with those
Yeah.
early inning guys and Drew Smith and Adam Ottavino. If I had to perfect this team and just like provide one bandage for this team, it'd be those two guys to like turn their seasons around, which would make it a lot easier for me to buy in to the Mets keeping a lead or right? Not having something like a Texas Game 3 2.0 situation. But nonetheless, I catch your drift. My final thoughts before we get up out of here, I have to leave in the next couple of minutes, is win. That's it, man. And Hector, I'm not gonna buy into it. I appreciate it. I'm not buying into it. That's it. It's right in front of our faces why McNeil and Iglesias both played. That's it. I mean, you can make all the excuses you want. McNeil was prioritized. Vientos, it wasn't an off day. Rob, just agree with me. There we go. Regardless, that's my point. Win. Listen, I want to see a series win. If we're talking about a series win in the post game, we're not talking about Jeff McNeil, right? That probably means that decision to put him in the ball game today wasn't a difference maker, which is what we can hope for at any point. Like we hope that one player is not the difference maker. That's it. That's really it. And Hector will talk offline. I'm sure you'll send a message about how I'm wrong. It's fine. I want to listen to it. We'll talk about Jeff McNeil.
Yeah.
But we got to get out of here on the stream. So we'll talk about it in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, when we lose, everybody has a hated player that they'll focus on when we lose. When we win, we talk about the players that did well. This is basically how it goes as fans. So my final thoughts is I'm going to use Chris's words. Just win, baby. That's it. Very simple. Very, very simple. So game 76 is today. Luis Severino against Javier Assad. We don't like the lineup, but maybe they'll shock us and cause some damage and win this game, win another series, and head back home for tomorrow on the off day before the Subway Series. So once again, guys, thank you for tuning in to another Amazing Mets pregame show with myself and Chris on both of our channels. Before you go, guys, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber of the channel, make sure you subscribe to both channels for a post game later tonight after the game, and tomorrow when the roundtable happens as well. So everybody have a great day. Enjoy the Mets game in about an hour. Unfortunately, it's on ESPN, but we can deal with it. Just put it on mute. Have a great day, guys. Let's go, Mets. Let's get that W and another series win. See you next time, guys. Have a good night.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the